Home. Baby, stuck in the door of the car. What this mother bear did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Every bit of your support helps us create even more amazing stories for you. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet suburban neighborhood of Pine Ridge. Olivia Bennett stood at her kitchen window, her hands submerged in warm, soapy water as she washed the lunch dishes. Her eyes constantly darted to the backyard, where her 2-year-old son, Noah, played with his favorite toy truck in the sandbox. The familiar sound of his giggles brought a smile to her tired face. Olivia had been up since dawn. Being a single mother was never easy, especially with Noah going through a phase where he refused to sleep through the night. Dark circles rimmed her eyes, but the love she felt watching her son play made every sleepless night worth it. "Just 5 more minutes of dishes, then we'll go for our walk," she called out to Noah, who looked up momentarily before returning to his serious work of digging roads for his truck. The Bennett home sat at the edge of the neighborhood, where manicured lawns gradually gave way to the dense forest that bordered the small town. It was what had drawn Olivia to the house in the first place, the perfect balance between community and nature. Their daily walks along the forest trail had become a cherished routine, a moment of peace in their busy days. Olivia dried her hands on a kitchen towel and glanced at the clock. It was nearly 3, the perfect time for their afternoon stroll before dinner preparations. She reached for Noah's sippy cup to fill it with water when the phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the peaceful afternoon, startling her. Olivia hesitated, then picked up the receiver. "Hello? Olivia, it's Dr. Winter's office calling to confirm your appointment tomorrow at 10, said the friendly voice on the other end. "Yes, we'll be there," Olivia replied, cradling the phone against her shoulder as she filled Noah's cup. The conversation continued for a few minutes as the receptionist verified insurance details. Olivia turned her back to the window, concentrating on finding her insurance card in her wallet. She didn't notice the sudden quiet from the backyard. Noah, always curious and surprisingly quick for his age, had spotted something interesting. The family SUV was parked in the driveway, its sleek blue surface gleaming in the afternoon sun. Olivia had unloaded groceries earlier, and in her hurry to get lunch ready, had left the back door slightly ajar. To Noah's imaginative mind, the car looked like a giant blue whale waiting to be explored. He abandoned his truck and toddled over to the vehicle, his small legs carrying him across the lawn and onto the concrete driveway. The open door beckoned to him like an invitation to adventure. Noah reached up with his chubby hands and pulled at the door, opening it wider. "Vroom, vroom," he mimicked, climbing halfway into the back seat. The interior was cool and smelled of the pine air freshener Olivia used. Noah giggled to himself as he pretended to drive, his hands gripping an imaginary steering wheel. After a few moments of play, he decided to return to his sandbox. As he turned to climb out, his favorite stuffed bear, a small worn teddy he carried everywhere, slipped from his overalls pocket and landed on the car floor. Noah reached down to retrieve it, stretching his small body awkwardly. At that moment, a gust of wind swept through the driveway. The partially open door swung with unexpected force. Noah, half in and half out of the car, felt a sharp pain as the door's edge caught his overalls and pinched his skin beneath. He was trapped in the door, unable to push it open with his limited strength. At first, Noah was more surprised than scared. He tugged at his clothes, expecting to free himself easily. When he couldn't move, confusion set in. He called out, "Mama?" His voice was small, barely audible from inside the car. When no response came, Noah called again, louder this time. "Mama!" His voice cracked as fear began to rise in his chest. He pulled harder, but the door wouldn't budge. The more he struggled, the more frightened he became. His breathing quickened, and tears welled up in his eyes. Inside the house, Olivia finished her call and returned the phone to its cradle. "Noah, time to get ready for our walk," she called out, expecting to hear his excited footsteps. When silence answered her, she frowned and moved to the window. The sandbox was empty. "Noah?" she called again, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. She scanned the backyard, expecting to see him chasing a butterfly or hiding behind the small playhouse. Nothing. A mother's intuition is a powerful thing. Before panic could fully take hold, Olivia heard a faint cry. It was muffled, but unmistakably her son's voice. She rushed to the back door, pushing it open with such force that it banged against the wall. "Noah, where are you, baby?" she called out, her eyes frantically searching the yard. The cry came again, slightly louder, from the direction of the driveway. Olivia ran toward the sound, her heart pounding in her chest. As she rounded the corner of the house, she saw their SUV and Noah's small legs dangling from the back door. Relief flooded through her for a split second. He was there, he was alive. But it quickly gave way to new concern as she realized he was caught in the door. She sprinted across the driveway, calling his name. Just as she reached the halfway point, something in the tree line at the edge of their property caught her attention. Olivia froze mid-step. There, emerging from the shadows of the forest, was a massive brown bear. The world seemed to stop. Olivia stood paralyzed, her son trapped in the car door just yards away, and a wild bear stepping onto her property. Her mind raced with conflicting instincts: run to her child or retreat to safety. Fear clutched at her throat, making it impossible to scream. The bear paused at the edge of the forest, its nose raised to the air. It was a female, her coat thick and glossy in the afternoon light. Behind her, two small cubs peeked out from between the trees, their curiosity evident but their movements cautious. Noah's cries grew more desperate. The sound seemed to capture the mother bear's attention. She turned her massive head toward the car, her small eyes focusing on the trapped child. Olivia found her voice at last. "Noah!" she screamed, hoping to distract the bear, to draw its attention away from her son. But the mother bear had already begun to move. What happened next would forever change Olivia Bennett's understanding of the natural world. The mother bear approached the car with deliberate steps, her movements surprisingly gentle for such a large creature. Olivia watched in horror, her feet finally finding the strength to move. She ran toward her son, screaming, waving her arms wildly, doing anything she could think of to scare away the approaching predator. But the bear paid her no attention. Its focus remained entirely on the trapped child. As the distance between the bear and the car closed, Olivia's worst fears seemed about to materialize before her eyes. Then, in a moment that defied all logic and expectation, the mother bear reached the vehicle. Noah's cries had subsided to hiccuping sobs, his eyes wide with wonder at the massive creature before him. The bear sniffed the air around the door, its powerful jaws just inches from Noah's exposed legs. Olivia was just steps away when she saw something that stopped her in her tracks. The mother bear wasn't attacking. Instead, with surprising gentleness, she nudged the car door with her massive head, pushing it slightly open. The pressure on Noah's trapped clothing eased. The bear nudged again, with more force this time, and the door swung open enough for Noah to slip free. He tumbled forward, landing on the driveway with a small thud. For one frozen moment, the toddler and the bear regarded each other. Noah's tears had stopped completely, replaced by an expression of pure awe. The bear sniffed once more, then grunted softly. Olivia reached her son and scooped him into her arms, backing away slowly, her eyes never leaving the massive animal before them. The bear watched them for a moment longer, then turned and ambled back toward the forest edge where her cubs waited. Before disappearing into the trees, she paused and looked back, as if ensuring the human cub was truly safe. And then, as quietly as she had appeared, the mother bear was gone, leaving Olivia clutching her son, both of them breathing heavily in the sudden stillness of the afternoon. What had just happened? Had a wild bear really helped free her trapped child? Olivia looked down at Noah, checking him for injuries. Aside from a red mark where the door had pinched him and tear-stained cheeks, he seemed perfectly fine. In fact, he was smiling. "Bear," Noah said simply, pointing toward the forest. "Nice bear." Olivia couldn't speak. She held her son close, her mind struggling to process what she had witnessed. The moment challenged everything she thought she knew about wild animals, about predators and prey, about the invisible boundaries between the human world and the natural one. As she carried Noah back to the house, Olivia glanced over her shoulder at the forest edge. The bear family was long gone, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had just occurred, something that went beyond logical explanation. A mother from the wild had recognized the distress of another mother's child and had acted with unexpected compassion. In that extraordinary moment, the fundamental bond of motherhood had transcended species, and Olivia Bennet knew her life would never be quite the same again. In the days that followed, Olivia couldn't stop thinking about what she had witnessed. She told no one at first, fearing they would think she was making it up or that they would misunderstand and organize a hunt for the bear. But the image of that massive creature gently nudging the car door, freeing her trapped son, played in her mind constantly. Noah seemed unfazed by the incident. When asked about the nice bear, he would smile and hug his teddy closer, as if the stuffed toy and the wild animal were somehow connected in his young mind. The red mark on his side had faded, leaving no physical reminder of his ordeal. A week after the encounter, Olivia finally worked up the courage to check the security camera she had installed when they first moved in. She had forgotten about it in the emotional aftermath of the incident, but now she needed to see, needed to confirm that what she remembered was what had actually happened. With trembling fingers, she accessed the footage on her laptop. The camera had captured everything. Noah's curiosity leading him to the car, the door swinging shut, trapping him. The mother bear's emergence from the forest, her careful approach, the gentle way she had nudged the door open. It was all there, exactly as Olivia remembered. She watched the footage again and again, tears streaming down her face. In a world often filled with fear and division, she had witnessed something miraculous, a moment of cross-species empathy that defied explanation. That night, as she tucked Noah into bed, Olivia noticed his stuffed bear sitting on the nightstand. An idea began to form in her mind. The next day, she contacted a local wildlife conservation group. Without revealing the full story, she made a generous donation specifically earmarked for bear habitat preservation. It was the beginning of what would become a life-changing path for both her and Noah. Over the coming months, Olivia began researching bear behavior, learning everything she could about these complex creatures. She discovered that bears, particularly mothers, were far more intelligent and emotionally sophisticated than most people realized. The more she learned, the more she understood the extraordinary nature of what she had witnessed. She started taking Noah to wildlife education programs, teaching him from an early age about respecting nature and living in harmony with the wild creatures that shared their world. The incident that could have ended in tragedy had instead planted the seeds for a profound appreciation of the natural world. Sometimes, in the quiet evenings when Noah was asleep, Olivia would sit on their back porch and look out toward the forest. Though she never again saw the mother bear and her cubs, she felt a connection to them, a silent understanding that transcended words. The boundaries between her world and the wild had been briefly crossed that day, revealing a universal truth about motherhood and protection that Olivia would carry with her forever. A bear had saved her son, and in doing so had changed the way she saw the world. And somewhere in the depths of the forest, a mother bear continued to raise her cubs, unaware that her moment of unexpected compassion had transformed a human life forever. As summer turned to fall, Olivia noticed subtle changes in the forest that bordered their property. The conservation group she had contacted informed her that logging companies had purchased land nearby and were planning to clear several acres. The news hit her like a physical blow. That forest was home to countless creatures, including the mother bear who had saved Noah. The thought of those ancient trees falling, of wildlife driven from their homes, kept her awake at night. "We have to do something," she whispered to herself one evening, watching the sunset paint the treetops gold. Noah was playing with his toys on the living room floor, still too young to understand the threat to his nice bear. The next day, Olivia started making calls. She contacted environmental activists, local politicians, and neighbors. Many dismissed her concerns, but a few listened. A small group began to form, people who shared her desire to protect the forest. "It's just trees," said Derek Mason, a town council member, when Olivia presented her concerns at a public meeting. "We need the jobs that logging will bring." "It's not just trees," Olivia replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "It's an ecosystem. It's homes for wildlife. It's part of what makes our town special." She didn't mention the bear. She knew that story would make some people more determined to clear the forest, not less. The battle to save the forest consumed Olivia's free time. She organized petitions, arranged community meetings, and researched legal options. Noah watched his mother with curious eyes, absorbing her passion without fully understanding its source. One rainy October afternoon, as Olivia was preparing dinner, she heard Noah calling from the backyard. "Mama, look!" She rushed to the window, heart in her throat. Noah stood at the edge of their yard, pointing toward the forest. Through the curtain of rain, Olivia could make out a large, dark shape at the tree line. The mother bear had returned, and beside her were two growing cubs. "Stay still, baby," Olivia called softly, slowly making her way outside. The bear didn't run. Instead, she seemed to be watching them, her powerful body motionless in the rain. For several long moments they stood like that, woman and child on one side, bear family on the other. Then the mother bear turned, nudging her cubs back into the shelter of the trees. Before she disappeared, she looked back once, her eyes meeting Olivia's across the yard. The message felt clear, though no words had been spoken. "Help us." That encounter renewed Olivia's determination. The next day, she contacted a wildlife photographer who had been documenting bears in the region. James Parker was skeptical when she first called, but agreed to meet her for coffee. "I've been tracking a particular mother bear and her cubs for a documentary," he explained, showing Olivia photos on his camera. "She's remarkable, unusually intelligent. I've seen her problem solve in ways that challenge what we know about bear cognition." Olivia's heart raced as she recognized the bear from his photos. "That's her," she whispered. Then, making a split-second decision, she pulled out her laptop and showed him the security footage from the day Noah had been trapped. James watched in stunned silence. When the video ended, he sat back, running a hand through his graying hair. "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes..." He shook his head. "This changes everything." With James's help, Olivia's campaign to save the forest gained momentum. The footage, carefully edited to protect Noah's privacy but clearly showing the bear's extraordinary behavior, went viral when James shared it with his contacts in wildlife conservation. Scientists and bear experts came to Pine Ridge to study the area and its bears. The logging plans were temporarily halted as environmental impact studies were conducted. Olivia found herself at the center of a growing movement, her quiet life transformed by unexpected activism. Not everyone was supportive. Some locals resented the outsiders and the attention. Others questioned the authenticity of the video or suggested the bear had been acting out of hunger rather than compassion. One evening, Olivia received an anonymous phone call. "You and your brat should leave town," said a gruff voice. "Those bears are worth more dead than alive to the right people." The threat shook her deeply. That night, she locked every door and window, checking on Noah repeatedly as he slept. The next morning, she found their mailbox smashed and a cruel message spray-painted on their driveway. "Bear lover." For the first time, Olivia questioned whether she was doing the right thing. Was she putting Noah at risk? Should she back down, sell the house, move somewhere safer? As she scrubbed the paint from the concrete, tears streaming down her face, a car pulled into the driveway. A woman stepped out. Tall, with silver-streaked dark hair and the weathered face of someone who spent most of her time outdoors. "Olivia Bennett?" she asked, her voice gentle but authoritative. "I'm Dr. Eleanor Reyes. I'm a wildlife biologist specializing in bear behavior. I saw the footage. I'd like to help." Dr. Reyes explained that she had been studying bear-human interactions for decades. "What you captured on video is extraordinary," she said, sitting at Olivia's kitchen table while Noah napped upstairs. "It suggests levels of empathy we haven't documented in bears before. This could change how we understand these animals and how we protect them." With Dr. Reyes's expertise and connections, the campaign to save the forest gained scientific credibility. The threats against Olivia didn't stop, but local police began taking them seriously, increasing patrols past her house. More community members joined the cause, including some who had initially supported the logging. Winter descended on Pine Ridge, blanketing the forest in snow. The bears would be hibernating now, Olivia knew, tucked away in dens until spring. She hoped they were safe, that the mother bear and her cubs had found a secure place to wait out the cold months. The legal battle over the forest continued, with hearings and appeals dragging on. Olivia testified at several meetings, always focusing on the ecological importance of the area rather than her personal connection to it. Christmas approached, bringing with it a temporary reprieve from the conflict. Noah, now 3, was bubbling with excitement about Santa Claus. Olivia threw herself into creating a magical holiday for him, grateful for the distraction from the constant stress of the forest campaign. On Christmas Eve, as snow fell softly outside their window, Olivia and Noah baked cookies and sang carols. They hung stockings and read The Night Before Christmas, continuing traditions from Olivia's own childhood. As Noah finally drifted off to sleep, exhausted from excitement, Olivia sat by his bed, watching his peaceful face. "I'm trying to make the world better for you," she whispered, smoothing his hair. "I hope someday you'll understand why this matters so much." She was about to turn out the light when Noah's eyes fluttered open. "Mama," he said sleepily, "I dreamed about the nice bear. She was talking to me." "Oh? What did she say?" Olivia asked, smiling at his imagination. "She said, 'Thank you,'" Noah replied simply, before closing his eyes again. Olivia sat frozen, a chill that had nothing to do with the winter night running through her. How could Noah know? How could his young mind have conjured the very words that echoed in her own heart? She watched him sleep for a long time after that, wondering at the mysteries of connection that seemed to transcend ordinary understanding. The new year brought unexpected news. The logging company, facing mounting public pressure and the prospect of costly legal battles, agreed to sell the disputed forest land to a conservation trust at a significantly reduced price. The catch: the community had to raise half the funds within 6 months. It seemed an impossible task for a small town like Pine Ridge, but Olivia, Dr. Reyes, and their growing network of supporters refused to give up. They organized fundraisers, applied for grants, and launched an online campaign sharing the story of the forest and its remarkable bears. Donations began to trickle in, then flow more steadily as the story spread. A famous wildlife artist created a series of paintings inspired by the mother bear, donating the proceeds to the Forest Fund. Schoolchildren broke open piggy banks to contribute their savings. Environmental organizations offered matching grants. By late spring, they were still short of their goal, but hope remained strong. The mother bear and her cubs emerged from hibernation, occasionally visible at the forest edge. Olivia made sure they were left in peace, discouraging curious visitors from approaching too closely. One warm May evening, as Olivia and Noah played in the backyard, James Parker arrived unexpectedly. His face was flushed with excitement. "You won't believe who I just met with," he said, accepting the glass of iced tea Olivia offered. "Harrison Wells." Olivia nearly dropped the pitcher. Harrison Wells was a tech billionaire known for his environmental philanthropy. "What? Why?" "He saw our campaign. He's offering to match whatever we've raised so far, which means we'll have enough to buy the forest land, with money left over for ongoing conservation efforts." Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes. "Are you serious? The forest is saved?" "Almost," James cautioned. "Wells wants to meet you first. He says he doesn't invest in causes, he invests in people. He wants to hear your story directly." The meeting was arranged for the following week. Olivia fretted over what to wear, what to say, how to convince this powerful man that their cause was worthy. In the end, she decided honesty was the only approach that felt right. Harrison Wells was nothing like she had imagined. In his 60s, with kind eyes and a soft-spoken manner, he put Olivia at ease immediately. They walked along the forest edge together, Noah running ahead to show his favorite spots. "So," Wells said finally, "tell me why this forest matters to you personally. Not the ecological reasons or the wildlife statistics. The real reason." Olivia hesitated, then told him everything, about Noah being trapped, about the mother bear's extraordinary intervention, about the connection she felt to this wild creature who had saved her son. Wells listened silently. When she finished, he watched Noah playing nearby. "My daughter was saved by a stranger once," he said quietly. "Someone who had no reason to help, who took a risk for a child they didn't know. I've spent my life trying to pay that forward." He turned to Olivia, his expression serious. "I believe your story. More importantly, I believe in what you're trying to do here. The forest will be protected." True to his word, Wells provided the remaining funds. By midsummer, the deal was finalized. The forest would be preserved as a wildlife sanctuary, with sustainable trails and educational programs, but strict protections for bear habitats. Olivia was offered a position as community liaison for the new sanctuary, allowing her to continue her advocacy work while earning a steady income. The victory celebration brought the community together, healing some of the divisions that had formed during the conflict. Even Derek Mason attended, grudgingly admitting that the sanctuary might bring ecotourism dollars to the town. As the party wound down, Olivia slipped away, taking Noah's hand and walking to their special spot at the forest edge. The summer evening was warm, fireflies beginning to sparkle in the growing dusk. "Mama, look," Noah whispered, pointing. At the tree line stood the mother bear and her cubs, now nearly as large as she was. They watched the humans quietly, without fear, but maintaining their distance. "She knows," Noah said, with the simple certainty of a child. "She knows we helped." Olivia felt tears on her cheeks. "Yes," she said softly. "I think she does." For a long moment, the two families regarded each other across the space between their worlds. Then, with a soft grunt, the mother bear turned and led her cubs back into the depths of their forest home. A home that would now remain theirs for generations to come. As Olivia and Noah walked hand in hand back to their house, the first stars appearing overhead, she felt a sense of completion, of things having come full circle. A bear had saved her son, and together they had saved the bear's home. It was a story she would never tire of telling, a reminder of the unexpected connections that bind all living things together on this shared planet. But their story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. 6 months after the forest was officially designated as a wildlife sanctuary, Olivia received a call from Dr. Reyes. The biologist's voice was tight with concern. "One of the cubs is missing," she said without preamble. "The mother bear's female cub hasn't been seen for 3 days." "Could she have just wandered off?" Olivia asked, her stomach nodding with worry. "Possibly, but not likely. These cubs are still dependent on their mother. We've found some disturbing signs." Dr. Reyes paused. "Possible poacher activity in the north section. Tire tracks, cigarette butts, and some blood on the ground." Olivia sank into a chair, her free hand covering her mouth. Despite the sanctuary status, the bears weren't completely safe. There would always be those who saw them as trophies or commodities. "What can we do?" "We're organizing search parties. Game wardens are involved, but I thought you should know." After hanging up, Olivia stood at her window, looking out at the forest that had become so central to her life. The thought of the cub, perhaps injured, perhaps worse, was unbearable. Without fully forming a plan, she called Noah's babysitter, then grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. She drove to the sanctuary headquarters, a converted ranger station near the main trail entrance. Volunteers were gathering, being organized into search teams by park rangers. Dr. Reyes nodded grimly when she saw Olivia. "Any news?" Olivia asked. "Nothing good. We found more blood about half a mile in, and these." The biologist held up a plastic evidence bag containing shell casings. Someone was definitely hunting illegally in the sanctuary. Olivia joined a search team, spending hours combing through underbrush, calling softly, looking for any sign of the missing cub. As darkness fell, the search was suspended until morning. She returned home exhausted and heartsick. Noah was already asleep when she arrived. His babysitter, Tara, looked concerned. "He was upset this evening," she said quietly. "Kept saying something was wrong in the forest, that someone was hurt." A chill ran through Olivia. Noah's unusual connection to the bears had manifested before. Could he somehow sense what was happening? The next morning, she gently questioned him over breakfast. "You told Tara something was wrong in the forest?" Noah nodded solemnly, spooning cereal into his mouth. "The baby bear is scared. She's hiding." "Do you know where she's hiding, sweetheart?" Noah considered this, his small face scrunched in concentration. "In the special place, where the big rocks make a cave." Olivia's pulse quickened. There was a rock formation in the eastern section of the sanctuary, a series of boulders that had tumbled together centuries ago, creating cave-like spaces underneath. It wasn't far from where the blood had been found. She called Dr. Reyes immediately. The biologist was skeptical but agreed it was worth checking. That area was searched yesterday, but it's easy to miss something in those rocks. I'll send a team. I want to go, Olivia insisted. It's not safe if poachers are still active. I'll stay with the rangers, please. Dr. Reyes reluctantly agreed. After arranging for Tara to watch Noah again, Olivia drove to the sanctuary. A small team was already preparing to check the rock formation. The hike took nearly an hour, the terrain growing rougher as they approached the eastern ridge. The massive boulders came into view, their gray surfaces dappled with lichen and moss. Rangers spread out, moving carefully, calling softly to avoid frightening the cub if she was indeed hiding there. Olivia stayed back as instructed, heart pounding as she watched the search unfold. Minutes stretched into a half hour with no results. She began to doubt Noah's intuition, wondering if it had been just a child's imagination. Then a soft call came from one of the rangers, a woman named Maya who had been checking a narrow crevice between two boulders. "I've got something." Everyone converged on her position. Maya pointed her flashlight into the dark space. "There's definitely an animal in there. I can see eyes reflecting." Dr. Reyes took over, approaching carefully. "It's her," she confirmed after a tense moment. "It's the missing cub, and she's alive." Relief flooded through Olivia, but it was tempered by the ranger's next words. "She's injured. Looks like a gunshot wound to her hind leg. We'll need the wildlife vet and tranquilizers to get her out safely." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The wildlife veterinarian arrived with equipment. The cub was carefully tranquilized and extracted from her hiding place. Her injury was serious. A bullet had shattered her femur, but treatable. "She picked a good hiding spot," the vet commented as they stretchered the unconscious cub to a waiting vehicle. "Somewhere dark and defensible. Smart girl." "How did she get all the way here with that injury?" one of the rangers asked. No one had an answer. It seemed impossible that the wounded cub could have traveled so far on her own, yet somehow she had found safety. As they prepared to transport the cub to a wildlife rehabilitation facility, the bushes at the edge of the clearing rustled. Everyone froze. The mother bear emerged, her remaining cub close behind her. The rangers raised their tranquilizer guns defensively. "Don't," Dr. Reyes said sharply. "She's not threatening us." Indeed, the mother bear made no aggressive move. She stood watching, her eyes fixed on her unconscious cub. The pain and worry in those dark eyes was unmistakable. Dr. Reyes stepped forward slowly, speaking in a low, soothing voice. "We're helping her. She'll be safe. We'll bring her back when she's healed." As if she understood, the mother bear remained still, watching as her injured cub was loaded into the vehicle. Only when the doors closed did she turn away, disappearing back into the forest with her remaining offspring. The injured cub's recovery would be long and uncertain. The rehabilitation facility was equipped to handle such cases, but gunshot wounds were serious, especially in young animals. Olivia visited as often as she was permitted, bringing Noah once when the cub was strong enough for brief visitors. "She remembers you," Noah said confidently as they watched the cub through a viewing window. She was in a large enclosure designed to mimic her natural habitat while allowing her to heal safely. "How do you know?" Olivia asked gently. "I can tell," he replied simply. "She's saying thank you." There was that phrase again. Thank you. The words Noah had dreamed the mother bear was saying. Olivia watched her son watching the bear cub, wondering at the mysterious bond between them. The investigation into the poaching incident continued. The shell casings found in the sanctuary were being analyzed, and game wardens were monitoring known poachers in the region. Olivia threw herself into advocacy work, using the incident to push for stricter penalties for wildlife crimes and better funding for sanctuary security. 3 months after the cub was found, the wildlife rehabilitation team determined she was ready to be released. Her leg had healed remarkably well, though she would always have a slight limp. The release would be done carefully in a section of the sanctuary where her mother and sibling had been recently sighted. "We can't guarantee the mother will accept her back," Dr. Reyes warned as they prepared for the release day. "Sometimes after a long separation, the family bond breaks down." Olivia nodded, understanding the risk but hoping for the best. The connection between the mother bear and her cubs had always seemed unusually strong. The morning of the release was clear and cool, early autumn painting the forest in gold and crimson. A small team gathered at the release site: Dr. Reyes, the wildlife vet, 2 rangers, and Olivia. Noah had begged to come, but Olivia had gently refused, not wanting him present if things went wrong. The cub was transported in a large crate, still drowsy from mild sedation to keep her calm during the journey. As they carried the crate to the designated spot, a clearing near where the mother bear had recently been tracked, silence fell over the group. This was the moment of truth. The wildlife vet opened the crate door and stepped back. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then slowly, cautiously, the cub emerged. She stood blinking in the dappled sunlight, her head raised to catch the scents of the forest, her home. Everyone held their breath, watching. The cub took a few tentative steps, testing her healed leg. Then she raised her head and let out a soft chuff, a call. The response was immediate. From the trees across the clearing came an answering grunt. The mother bear appeared, her remaining cub close behind. She paused, seeming to assess the situation, then approached her injured offspring. The reunion was breathtaking. The mother bear sniffed her cub thoroughly, checking her over. The healed cub submitted to the inspection, then nuzzled against her mother. The sibling joined the greeting, circling and sniffing. After several minutes of reacquaintance, the mother bear grunted softly and turned toward the forest. Her cubs, both of them, followed. At the edge of the trees, the mother bear paused. She turned back, looking directly at the humans who stood watching. For a moment, just a moment, her eyes seemed to meet Olivia's across the clearing. Then she disappeared into the shadows of the forest, her family complete once more. "Remarkable," Dr. Reyes murmured. She recognized her cub immediately, even after all this time. Olivia nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The scene had affected her deeply, reminding her of that first extraordinary encounter that had changed her life. As they packed up their equipment and prepared to leave, one of the rangers approached Olivia. "There's something you should know," he said quietly. "We identified the poacher from those shell casings. It was Derek Mason." Olivia stared at him in shock. "The town councilman? The one who wanted the logging to go through?" The ranger nodded grimly. "Seems he was trying to create an incident to turn public opinion against the sanctuary. Make people afraid of the bears. That's..." Olivia struggled to find words. "That's monstrous. He's been arrested, facing multiple charges. Thought you'd want to know." The news spread quickly through the small town. Many were shocked, others less so. Derek Mason had always been vocal about his opposition to the sanctuary, but few had imagined he would go so far. In the wake of the scandal, community support for the sanctuary grew stronger. More volunteers joined the conservation effort. the town council approved additional funding for educational programs. The story of the injured cub's rescue and return to her mother became a powerful symbol of the sanctuary's importance. For Olivia and Noah, life settled into a new rhythm. Olivia continued her work with the sanctuary, developing programs to help visitors understand and appreciate the forest and its inhabitants. Noah started kindergarten, where he became known for his detailed bear drawings and stories. They still took walks along the forest edge, still occasionally glimpsed the mother bear and her cubs, now growing rapidly. But they maintained their distance, respecting the boundary between their worlds. The connection remained, but it was a connection based on mutual space and respect. One evening, as winter approached again, Olivia sat with Noah on their back porch, watching the sunset paint the forest in deep gold. Noah was unusually quiet, his small face thoughtful. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" Olivia asked, pulling him closer in the cooling air. "I was wondering if the bears will remember me when I grow up," he said. Olivia considered this. "I don't know. Bears have good memories, but they live differently than we do." Noah nodded, accepting this. "I'll remember them," he said with certainty. "Forever and ever." "So will I," Olivia replied softly. "They changed everything, didn't they?" Noah leaned against her, warm and solid. "The bear saved me," he said, "and then we saved the bears. That's how it works, right, Mama? We save each other." Olivia looked down at her son, this wise little person who somehow understood so much. "Yes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's exactly how it works. We save each other." As darkness fell, they continued to sit together, watching as the first stars appeared above the forest. Somewhere in those dark woods, a mother bear was preparing her family for winter, for the long sleep ahead. And somewhere beyond understanding, the invisible thread that had connected them that extraordinary day remained. A reminder of the unexpected ways we reach across differences to recognize each other's humanity, even when one of us isn't human at all. Years passed, and the story of the mother bear and the trapped child became a cherished family tale. Noah grew from a curious toddler into an adventurous boy with a deep love for wildlife. Olivia found a new purpose in wildlife conservation, eventually starting a local initiative to protect the forest and educate the community about coexisting peacefully with nature. And though they never again encountered the mother bear, who had performed that extraordinary act of kindness in quite the same way, her legacy lived on in their hearts and in their actions, a testament to the unexpected connections that can form between all living creatures, if only we are open to recognizing them. But that wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a much larger one. Noah's 7th birthday arrived on a perfect spring day. Olivia had planned a small celebration at their home, with a few of his school friends and their parents. The cake was shaped like a bear, of course, a tradition they had started on his 4th birthday. As the children played in the backyard, Olivia chatted with the other parents. Many were familiar with her work at the sanctuary, and some had even volunteered there. The bear rescue story, as it had come to be known locally, had faded from daily conversation but remained part of the town's shared history. "Noah's in my son's science class," said Diane, mother of Noah's friend Tyler. "His teacher says he has an unusual understanding of wildlife behavior for his age." Olivia smiled. "He's always been that way. Sometimes I think he understands animals better than people." It was true. Noah had a gift for reading animal behavior, for noticing details others missed. At the sanctuary's educational events, he often spotted things even the trained naturalists overlooked. A bird's nest hidden in brush, the subtle signs of deer passing through, the tracks of smaller forest creatures. The birthday party was winding down when a sanctuary ranger's truck pulled into the driveway. James Parker stepped out, waving to Olivia. He had a mysterious smile on his face. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, approaching the adults, "but I have a special birthday surprise for Noah. If it's okay with his mom." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "What kind of surprise?" James's smile widened. "We've been tracking the bear family. The cubs are nearly fully grown now. They'll be leaving their mother soon to establish their own territories, as young bears do. But before they go, we thought Noah might like to see them one more time. Safely, from the observation platform we built last fall." Noah, overhearing, rushed over, his eyes wide with excitement. "Can we go, Mom?" "Please?" Olivia hesitated for only a moment. "The party's almost over anyway. Let me just tell everyone." Within the hour, Olivia and Noah were following James along a sanctuary trail. The observation platform was a cleverly designed structure that allowed visitors to watch wildlife without disturbing them. Built into the side of a hill overlooking a meadow where bears often foraged, it was hidden by natural features and special material that minimized human scent. "We've been using camera traps to monitor them," James explained as they climbed the steps to the platform. "The family has been in this area for the past 3 days." They settled into the comfortable seats, binoculars ready. James set up a spotting scope on a tripod, focusing it on the meadow edge. The wait might be long, he warned. Wildlife viewing required patience, but they didn't have to wait long. Less than 20 minutes after they arrived, movement at the forest edge caught their attention. The mother bear emerged first, her coat gleaming in the afternoon sun. Behind her came the 2 cubs, no longer small, nearly as large as their mother now, but still recognizable as the cubs they had been. "That's them," Noah whispered, his voice filled with awe. "That's our bear family." Through the binoculars, Olivia could see the healed cub clearly. She still had a slight hitch in her gait, the only visible reminder of her injury. Otherwise, she looked strong and healthy, ready for independent life. The bears moved into the meadow, grazing on the fresh spring growth. They were unaware of the human observers, behaving naturally. It was a gift to see them this way, Olivia thought, wild and free, as they were meant to be. "I've been wanting to talk to you about something," James said quietly, watching the bears through the spotting scope. "The documentary I've been working on about the mother bear and what happened with Noah. It's almost finished." Olivia turned to him in surprise. Although James had mentioned the project occasionally, she hadn't realized it was so far along. "You're really making it?" He nodded. "It's turned into something bigger than I expected. Not just about your experience, but about bear intelligence, about conservation, about the different ways humans and wildlife interact. Several major networks are interested." "Will we be in it?" Noah asked, lowering his binoculars. "Only if you want to be," James assured him. "And only in ways your mom approves. I've been careful to respect your privacy." Olivia felt a flutter of anxiety. Their story becoming more public held risks, but it also held potential to change hearts and minds about wildlife conservation. "Can we see it before making a decision?" she asked. "Of course. In fact, I brought a rough cut." James patted his backpack. "Was hoping you might watch it tonight." After an hour of bear watching, they returned to the Bennett home. Noah was bubbling with excitement, talking nonstop about what they had seen. The mother bear had looked directly at the platform at one point, and Noah was convinced she had known they were there. "She remembered us," he insisted. "She was saying hello." Once Noah was in bed, still chattering about his birthday bear sighting, Olivia and James sat down to watch the documentary, titled The Bear's Gift. It was beautifully crafted, weaving together the story of Noah's rescue with broader themes of wildlife conservation and the intelligence of bears. To Olivia's relief, James had been respectful in his portrayal. The security footage was used sparingly, with Noah's face blurred. Interviews with Dr. Reyes and other experts provided scientific context. The poaching incident and subsequent rescue of the injured cub formed a powerful middle section. "It's wonderful, James," Olivia said when it ended. "You've captured something important here." "So you'll allow it to be distributed?" he asked. "With your story as the centerpiece?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Yes, on one condition. I want part of any proceeds to go toward bear conservation, not just here but nationally." James grinned. "Already arranged. The network that's most interested has agreed to a substantial donation to bear habitat preservation with each airing." The documentary aired 3 months later, first on a nature channel, then picked up by larger networks as word of mouth spread. The response was overwhelming. Viewers were touched by the story of cross-species compassion and inspired by the conservation message. The sanctuary saw increased donations and visitors. Olivia received letters and emails from around the country, many from people sharing their own stories of meaningful wildlife encounters. Noah took the attention in stride, enjoying his minor celebrity status at school, but remaining fundamentally the same curious, nature-loving boy. If anything, the documentary deepened his interest in wildlife and conservation. As Noah grew, so did his connection to the natural world. By the time he was 10, he was helping with presentations at the sanctuary, confidently explaining bear behavior to visitors. By 12, he was participating in citizen science projects, collecting data on forest health and wildlife populations. His science fair projects always focused on ecology or animal behavior, often winning top prizes. Olivia watched his development with pride and a touch of wonder. The boy, who had been saved by a bear, was growing into a passionate advocate for the natural world. His unexpected connection to that mother bear had shaped his path in ways neither of them could have imagined that fateful day. The mother bear and her cubs eventually went their separate ways, as is natural for bears when the young reach maturity. Sanctuary staff occasionally spotted the mother in her established territory. The male cub moved farther afield. The female cub, the one who had been injured, established a territory that overlapped slightly with her mother's, unusual but not unheard of for female bears. Life at the Bennett house settled into comfortable patterns. Olivia continued her work with the sanctuary, eventually becoming its education director. Noah excelled in school, particularly in science and environmental studies. The days of fear and uncertainty seemed far behind them, replaced by purpose and quiet joy. Then, on a crisp autumn day, as red and gold leaves drifted from the trees, everything changed once again. Noah was 13 when the first developers arrived. Men in expensive suits carrying clipboards and measuring tools, examining the land adjacent to the sanctuary. Olivia noticed them on her way home from work. Their sleek black SUVs parked along the rural road that bordered the eastern edge of the protected forest. "Just looking around," one said vaguely, when she stopped to ask what they were doing. "Beautiful area you have here." Something in his tone set off alarm bells. Olivia called Dr. Reyes that evening. "I've heard rumors," the biologist admitted. "Riverdale Development Corporation has been buying up properties on the eastern side. They're planning something big, a resort maybe, or a luxury housing community." "But that's right next to the sanctuary," Olivia protested. "It would disrupt wildlife corridors, increase traffic, bring noise and light pollution." "I know, but it's private land. As long as they follow zoning regulations, there's not much we can do to stop them." The news rippled through the community. Some welcomed the potential for jobs and economic growth. Others, particularly those involved with the sanctuary, worried about the impact on the delicate forest ecosystem. "What about the bears?" Noah asked when Olivia explained the situation. His face was serious, his eyes reflecting concern beyond his years. "Their territory extends beyond the sanctuary boundaries. What will happen to them?" It was a question Olivia couldn't answer. The sanctuary protected a significant portion of forest, but wild animals didn't recognize human-drawn boundaries. The bears, deer, foxes, and countless other creatures moved through the larger landscape, following ancient pathways that connected feeding grounds, water sources, and denning sites. A community meeting was called to discuss the development plans. The town hall was packed, with people spilling out onto the sidewalk. Representatives from Riverdale Development Corporation presented their vision: Pine Hollow Resort, a luxury wilderness experience featuring a lodge, spa, golf course, and high-end vacation homes. "We're committed to environmental responsibility," said the lead presenter, a polished woman named Vanessa Reed. "Our designs incorporate green building practices and minimize disruption to the natural landscape." But the maps told a different story. The development would encircle nearly half the sanctuary, pressing right up against its boundaries. Construction would last at least 3 years, bringing noise, dust, and constant human activity to the forest edge. Dr. Reyes stood to address the developers. "Your environmental impact statement doesn't adequately account for wildlife corridors," she said, her voice steady despite her obvious anger. "Bears, in particular, require large territories. This development would effectively trap them in the sanctuary, cutting them off from traditional movement routes. Our studies indicate minimal impact on large mammal populations," Vanessa replied smoothly. "And frankly, many vacationers would consider fewer bears in the area a benefit, not a problem." Murmurs ran through the crowd at this statement. Olivia felt Noah stiffen beside her. Before she could stop him, he was on his feet. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said, his young voice carrying clearly across the room. "Those bears aren't just animals you can fence in or drive away. They're intelligent. They have families. They belong here more than your resort does." The room fell silent. Noah rarely spoke in public, and never with such passion. Even the developers seemed taken aback by the intensity of this teenager's defense. Vanessa recovered quickly. "I appreciate your concern, young man. We all want what's best for the wildlife. But progress in nature can coexist with proper planning, which is exactly what we're proposing." The meeting continued, growing heated at times. Eventually, it became clear that while the developers were willing to make minor concessions, their overall plan remained unchanged. They had the land rights, the financial backing, and apparently the support of key members of the town council. As people filed out of the town hall, Olivia noticed a man watching Noah. Tall, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that missed nothing, he stood slightly apart from the crowd. When he saw Olivia noticing him, he approached. "That was quite a speech your son gave," he said, extending his hand. "Daniel Westbrook. I'm an environmental attorney." Olivia shook his hand, studying him warily. "Olivia Bennett, and this is Noah." "I know who you are," Westbrook said with a slight smile. "I saw the documentary. Your bear story is what brought me here, actually. I specialize in cases involving wildlife protection and development conflicts." "Are you working for Riverdale?" Noah asked bluntly. Westbrook laughed. "Number, quite the opposite. I'm here because friends at the Wildlife Federation alerted me to this situation. They're concerned, and after tonight's presentation I can see why." He handed Olivia his card. The developers have money and influence, but they may have vulnerabilities in their plan. If you're interested in fighting this, I'd like to help." Over the next few weeks, a resistance movement formed. Olivia, Dr. Reyes, James Parker, and Daniel Westbrook became the core of a group determined to either stop the development or force major modifications to protect wildlife corridors. They called themselves Forest Guardians, a name Noah suggested. Daniel identified several potential legal challenges. The developer's environmental impact statement had significant flaws. Their water usage estimates seemed suspiciously low, and there were questions about whether some of the land parcels had been properly rezoned. "It's not enough to stop them completely," he warned during a strategy meeting in Olivia's living room, "but it might force them back to the drawing board." Meanwhile, James used his connections in wildlife filmmaking to bring media attention to the situation. Local news stations picked up the story, then regional ones. The sanctuary's bears, particularly the mother bear who had rescued Noah, became symbols of the conflict between development and conservation. Noah threw himself into the effort with surprising intensity. He spoke at community events, helped create informational materials, and even started a petition that gathered thousands of signatures online. His first-hand experience with the bears gave him unique credibility, even as a teenager. "He's quite remarkable," Daniel commented to Olivia after watching Noah patiently explain bear behavior to a skeptical group of business owners. "Most kids his age are focused on video games and social media." "The bears changed him," Olivia replied simply. "Or maybe they just helped him become who he was always meant to be." As autumn deepened into winter, the legal battle intensified. The developers filed permits, the forest guardians filed objections. Local opinion remained divided, with economic interests often pitted against environmental concerns. Then, just before Christmas, a new twist emerged. A whistleblower from within Riverdale Development Corporation contacted Daniel, providing internal documents that revealed disturbing information. The company had deliberately falsified parts of their environmental assessment, particularly regarding watershed impacts and wildlife displacement. "This changes everything," Daniel told the forest guardians, spreading the documents across Olivia's dining table. "With this evidence, we can file for an immediate injunction to halt all development activities pending a full investigation." The legal maneuver hit Riverdale hard. Construction, which had been scheduled to begin after the spring thaw, was now on indefinite hold. Company executives were forced to make public statements defending their practices while privately scrambling to contain the damage. The whistleblower's identity remained protected, but rumors suggested it was someone high in the company hierarchy who had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the ethical compromises being made. Whatever their motivation, their action had given the forest a reprieve. Winter settled over Pine Ridge, blanketing the forest in snow. The bears entered hibernation, unaware of the human conflict surrounding their habitat. Olivia found herself wondering if the mother bear, now aging but still strong, was denned somewhere nearby, sleeping away the cold months while humans argued over the fate of her home. Noah seemed to share her thoughts. "Do you think she knows?" he asked one evening as they sat by the fireplace, watching snow fall outside their window. "Do you think she understands what we're trying to do?" "I don't know," Olivia answered honestly. "Bears are intelligent, but they experience the world differently than we do. I think she understands territory and threats and safety, but not zoning laws or legal injunctions." Noah nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes I dream about her," he admitted. "She's trying to tell me something, but I can't understand all of it, just feelings mostly." Olivia looked at her son, struck again by the unusual connection he seemed to have with the mother bear. Most children would have forgotten such an early childhood experience, or at least the emotional impact would have faded. But for Noah, the bond had only deepened with time. As winter gave way to spring, the legal battle reached a critical phase. The injunction had held, but Riverdale was fighting back with teams of corporate lawyers and expert witnesses. A judge would soon decide whether to allow the development to proceed with modifications or to require a completely new environmental assessment. The weekend before the court date, Noah asked to visit the observation platform where they had watched the bears on his 7th birthday. "I just want to see if they're out of hibernation yet," he explained. Olivia agreed, and they made the familiar hike through the awakening forest. New leaves were unfurling on the trees, and wildflowers dotted the forest floor. Signs of spring were everywhere: birdsong, fresh growth, the rich scent of damp earth warming in the sun. The observation platform was empty when they arrived. They settled in with binoculars, scanning the meadow for signs of wildlife. For nearly an hour, they saw nothing larger than squirrels and songbirds. Then, just as Olivia was about to suggest they head home, Noah gripped her arm. "Look," he whispered, pointing toward the eastern edge of the meadow. The mother bear emerged from the trees, moving slowly but purposefully. Her coat was slightly matted from hibernation, but her eyes were alert, taking in every detail of her surroundings. Behind her came another bear, not one of her cubs, now long grown and gone, but a younger female. "That's her daughter," Noah said with certainty. "The one who was injured. She's back." Olivia raised her binoculars, focusing on the younger bear. There was indeed a slight irregularity in her gait, the legacy of her long-ago gunshot wound, but otherwise she looked healthy and strong. The two bears moved together through the meadow, grazing on fresh spring growth, occasionally communicating with soft grunts. "She came home," Noah whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "She came back to her mother." Female bears sometimes establish territories near their mothers, Olivia knew, especially when space allowed. It was unusual but not unheard of. Still, seeing these two together again felt significant, a reminder of the complex family bonds that existed in the wild, bonds not so different from human ones. They watched until the bears disappeared back into the forest. On the hike back, Noah was unusually quiet, his expression distant as if listening to something Olivia couldn't hear. "What's on your mind?" she finally asked as they neared the trailhead. Noah hesitated. "I had another dream last night," he said slowly. "About the bears. It was different this time, more clear. Like they were showing me something." "Showing you what?" "A place. Somewhere in the forest I've never been before. There were caves and a waterfall and this strange rock formation that looked like a pyramid." He looked at her, his eyes troubled. "It felt important, Mom, like something I need to find." Olivia frowned. Dreams were just dreams, usually. The brain processing information, working through emotions. But Noah's connection to the bears had always seemed to transcend ordinary explanation. "We can ask James or Doctor Reyes if they know of a place like that in the sanctuary," she suggested. "Though it might just be your imagination, combining things you've seen in books or movies." Noah shook his head. "It's real. I know it is." He looked back toward the forest. "And I think it has something to do with the development. Like maybe there's something there they don't know about. Something that could help us stop them." The next day was Sunday, the final day before the court hearing. Olivia called an emergency meeting of the forest guardians at her house. Daniel Westbrook brought the latest legal briefs, Dr. Reyes her wildlife impact assessments, and James his media contacts list. They gathered around the dining table, reviewing their strategy for the coming legal battle. Noah listened quietly from the living room, occasionally glancing out the window toward the forest. Finally, during a break in the discussion, he approached the table. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice steady despite the nervous flush on his cheeks. "I think there's a place in the forest we should look at before tomorrow. Somewhere important." The adults exchanged glances. "What kind of place?" Dr. Reyes asked gently. Noah described his dream, the caves, the waterfall, the distinctive rock formation. As he spoke, Dr. Reyes's expression changed from polite interest to focused attention. "That sounds like Devil's Gorge," she said when he finished. "It's in the northeastern section of the sanctuary, right where it borders the proposed development area. There is a waterfall there, and some unusual rock formations formed by ancient volcanic activity." "I've never been there," Noah said, frowning. "It's off the main trails. Not many people visit it." Dr. Reyes turned to the others. "What's significant is that we haven't done much wildlife surveying in that area. It's rugged terrain, difficult to access." "Could it be important habitat?" Daniel asked, his legal mind immediately grasping potential implications. "Possibly. Cave systems like that would be ideal for denning bears and other species. If there's significant wildlife activity there that wasn't accounted for in the environmental assessment." She let the sentence hang. James was already on his feet. "We need to check it out, today. If there's anything there that could strengthen our case, we need to document it before tomorrow's hearing." Within an hour, an expedition was organized. Dr. Reyes, James, Daniel, Olivia, and Noah set out in James's four-wheel drive vehicle, following logging roads to the northeastern edge of the sanctuary. From there, they continued on foot, with Dr. Reyes consulting topographical maps and GPS coordinates. The terrain grew increasingly rugged as they hiked. The forest here was older, the trees massive, the underbrush dense. Noah led the way with surprising confidence, occasionally pausing as if listening to some internal guidance. "It's just over this ridge," he said after nearly 2 hours of hiking. "I can hear the waterfall." The adults, straining their ears, could hear nothing but bird calls and the rustle of wind through leaves, but they followed as Noah quickened his pace, scrambling up a steep, rocky slope. At the top, he stopped abruptly, a smile breaking across his face. "There," he said simply, pointing ahead. Below them lay a hidden valley, cut through by a rushing stream that cascaded over a series of rock ledges, forming a beautiful multi-level waterfall. Unusual rock formations rose from the forest floor, the result of ancient volcanic activity, as Dr. Reyes had suggested. And there, on the far side of the valley, was a cliff face studded with dark openings. Caves. "Devil's Gorge," Dr. Reyes confirmed, scanning the valley with binoculars. "Though I've never seen it from this angle before, it's more extensive than I realized." James was already setting up his camera equipment, capturing footage of the pristine landscape. Daniel walked the perimeter of the ridge, consulting maps and making notes. "This entire area would be impacted by the development," he said grimly. "Their plans show an access road cutting right through here, and several of the luxury cabins would overlook this valley." Olivia watched as Noah made his way carefully down the slope toward the valley floor. Something about his posture, focused, determined, reminded her of that day years ago when the mother bear had emerged from the forest to help her trapped child. There was the same purposeful energy, the same sense of knowing exactly what needed to be done. She followed him down, with Dr. Reyes close behind. As they reached the valley floor, the biologist began noting signs of wildlife, tracks in the soft earth, tufts of fur caught on low branches, scat of various species. "This is a major wildlife corridor," she said, her excitement growing. "Look at the diversity of tracks. Bears, deer, coyotes, foxes, even what might be a mountain lion. She knelt to examine a distinctive paw print pressed into mud near the stream. And these are fresh bear tracks, very fresh. Noah had continued toward the waterfall, drawn by some instinct the others couldn't perceive. As he neared the base of the falls, he stopped suddenly, pointing. "There," he called back. "Look." Half hidden by a rocky outcropping near the waterfall was the entrance to a cave, larger than the others visible from the ridge. And at its entrance were clear, unmistakable signs of heavy animal traffic. The ground was packed with tracks, and the nearby vegetation showed signs of regular passage. Dr. Reyes approached cautiously, scanning the cave entrance and surrounding area. "This is a major den site," she said, her voice hushed with discovery. "And not just for any bears." She pointed to distinctive marks on a nearby tree, claw marks at various heights, the highest nearly 7 feet above the ground. "These are territory markers. Bears stand against trees and reach as high as they can, leaving scent and claw marks to signal their presence. The pattern and height of these marks." She turned to Olivia, her expression filled with wonder. "I believe this is your mother bear's den, the one who saved Noah. This pattern matches records we've kept of her territorial markings elsewhere in the sanctuary." Noah stood very still, his face reflecting a complex mix of emotions. "I knew it," he said softly. "Somehow, I knew she was trying to show me this place." James had joined them, filming the den entrance and the marked trees. "This is incredible," he murmured. "A major denning site right in the path of the proposed development, one that wasn't included in their environmental assessment. And not just any den, but one used by the sanctuary's most famous bear." Daniel was already on his satellite phone, calling colleagues about their discovery. "This changes everything," he said when he hung up. "If we can document that this site is actively used by protected species, and that it was omitted from the developer's environmental assessment, we have grounds for a much stronger injunction." As the adults discussed legal strategy and documentation needs, Noah wandered closer to the waterfall. The afternoon sun created rainbows in the mist rising from the cascading water. He stood transfixed, watching the play of light and water, feeling the cool spray on his face. Movement at the edge of his vision drew his attention. On the far side of the pool at the base of the falls, a massive shape emerged from between 2 boulders. The mother bear stood watching him, her dark eyes reflecting intelligence and something else. Recognition, perhaps, or acknowledgement. Noah held his breath. Behind him, he could hear the adults still talking, unaware of the bear's presence. He made no move to alert them, sensing that this moment was meant for him alone. The bear took a step forward, then another, moving to the edge of the pool. She was older now, her muzzle graying slightly but still powerful. Still the queen of this forest domain. For several heartbeats, she regarded Noah across the water. Then, with deliberate movements, she turned and looked toward the ridge where the development would encroach on her territory. She looked back at Noah, her gaze direct and challenging, as if asking, "Will you let this happen?" Without conscious thought, Noah shook his head. "No," he whispered, "we won't let them destroy your home, I promise." The bear held his gaze for one moment more. Then, with a soft grunt that seemed almost like satisfaction, she turned and disappeared back into the forest shadows. Noah stood motionless until Olivia's hand on his shoulder brought him back to the present moment. "Are you okay?" she asked, noting his distant expression. "She was here," he said simply. "She showed herself to me. I think she's been guiding me somehow, through my dreams, showing me what I needed to find." In anyone else's mouth, such words might have sounded fanciful, even delusional. But Olivia had witnessed too many inexplicable connections between her son and the mother bear to dismiss them. She simply nodded, accepting his experience without question. "We found what we needed," she said. "Thanks to you." The group worked quickly to document everything: the den site, the wildlife tracks, the marked trees. James captured video footage. Dr. Reyes collected samples and measurements, and Daniel recorded precise GPS coordinates. By the time they headed back, the sun was setting, painting the forest in gold and amber. That night, back at home, the forest guardians finalized their strategy for the court hearing. The newly documented wildlife corridor and den site would form the centerpiece of their argument against the development. Daniel was confident it would persuade the judge to order, at minimum, a complete revision of the development plans. Bears den in the same sites for generations, Dr. Reyes explained. This isn't just any cave. It's the ancestral denning site, used by successive generations of bears. For the mother bear to be using it now suggests it has deep historical significance for the local bear population. As the adults worked, Noah sat by the window, looking out toward the darkened forest. He felt a profound sense of peace, of having fulfilled a promise he hadn't even known he was making. The mother bear had saved him once, long ago. Now, in some small way, he was helping to save her. The court hearing the next morning was tense but ultimately decisive. Daniel presented their new evidence methodically, emphasizing the developers' failure to properly assess critical wildlife habitat. Dr. Reyes provided expert testimony about the significance of the denning site and wildlife corridor. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for environmental concern, listened carefully to both sides. Riverdale's attorneys attempted to downplay the significance of the new findings, suggesting that the development could be slightly modified to avoid direct impact on the den site. But Daniel was prepared for this argument. He presented overlay maps showing how the proposed development would fragment the wildlife corridor, making it impossible for animals to move freely between the sanctuary and the larger wilderness areas beyond. It's not just about one cave or one bear, he argued. It's about maintaining the integrity of an entire ecosystem. The developers' current plans would effectively create an island of habitat, cut off from the broader landscape these animals need to thrive. The judge's ruling came swiftly. The development was halted pending a complete new environmental assessment, with special attention to wildlife corridors and denning sites. Furthermore, she ordered that any revised development plan must include substantial buffer zones around identified wildlife habitat. It wasn't a complete victory. The development wasn't permanently stopped, but it was a significant win for the forest and its inhabitants. At minimum, it meant years of delay for Riverdale, during which time the forest guardians could work on more permanent protection measures for the critical habitat. As they left the courthouse, reporters gathered around the group, asking questions about the ruling and its implications. Daniel handled most of the inquiries, with Dr. Reyes adding scientific context. Olivia stood back, one arm around Noah's shoulders, content to remain out of the spotlight. A reporter from a national news network pushed through the crowd, microphone extended. "Noah Bennett? You're the boy from the Bear's Gift documentary, right? The one who was saved by a bear as a toddler? How does it feel to now be helping save bears in return?" Noah looked at Olivia, who nodded encouragingly. He turned back to the reporter, his expression thoughtful. "It feels like coming full circle," he said simply. "Like this is what I was always meant to do." The story of the teenager helping to save the forest that was home to the bear who had once saved him spread quickly. National media picked it up, bringing renewed attention to the sanctuary and its conservation efforts. Donations poured in, allowing for expanded educational programs and additional land acquisition to buffer the protected area. Riverdale Development Corporation, facing mounting negative publicity and the prospect of years of expensive legal battles, eventually approached the forest guardians with a proposal. They would sell a significant portion of their land holdings, including the critical wildlife corridor and denning area, to a conservation trust at a reduced price. In exchange, they would be allowed to develop a much smaller, more environmentally sensitive eco-resort on the remaining land, with strict limitations on its footprint and impact. After much discussion, the forest guardians agreed to the compromise, recognizing it as the best realistic outcome for the forest and its inhabitants. The day the agreement was finalized, Olivia and Noah hiked to their special spot at the forest edge. The summer evening was warm, fireflies beginning to sparkle in the growing dusk. The forest before them, now permanently protected, seemed to hum with life. "We did it," Olivia said softly. "We saved her home." Noah nodded, his gaze fixed on the darkening tree line. "She knew we would," he said with quiet certainty. "That's why she showed me where to look. She trusted us." As if in answer to his words, a movement at the forest edge caught their attention. The mother bear emerged from the shadows, her powerful form unmistakable even in the fading light. She paused at the boundary between forest and field, watching them. Beside her walked a younger bear. Her daughter, the one who had been injured and healed, who had returned to establish her territory near her mother's. And behind them, to Olivia's astonishment, came two small cubs, the next generation, the future of this forest. The mother bear stood watching them for a long moment, the evening breeze ruffling her thick coat. Then she made a soft chuffing sound, almost like a sigh of satisfaction. She turned, nudging her family back toward the depths of their forest home, a home that would now remain theirs for generations to come. As they disappeared into the shadows, Noah turned to his mother, his eyes bright with understanding beyond his years. "This is just the beginning," he said. "There's so much more to do." Olivia smiled, recognizing the truth in his words. This victory, significant as it was, represented just one small battle in the larger struggle to protect the natural world. But it was an important one, a testament to the power of connection, of recognizing the bonds that link all living things in a complex web of interdependence. Years passed, seasons turning in their ancient rhythm. Noah graduated high school with honors and was accepted to several prestigious universities. To no one's surprise, he chose to study wildlife biology, with a focus on large mammal behavior and conservation. The summer before he left for college was bittersweet for Olivia. She was immensely proud of her son, of the thoughtful, passionate young man he had become. But she knew their daily life together was ending, shifting into something new and different. She tried to savor every moment, every shared meal, every evening conversation as the days grew longer and warmer. Noah seemed to feel it too, the poignancy of this transition time. He spent hours in the forest, hiking familiar trails, visiting favorite spots. Often he went alone, seeking solitude as he prepared for the changes ahead. Sometimes he took his sketchbook, recording the plants and animals he encountered in detailed drawings that revealed both scientific precision and deep artistic sensitivity. One humid July evening, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Noah returned from a long day in the forest. His expression was troubled, his movements agitated. "What's wrong?" Olivia asked, setting aside the book she'd been reading. Noah paced the living room, struggling to find words. "I saw hunters," he finally said. "In the northeast section, near Devil's Gorge. They had rifles and weren't wearing orange. Definitely not official hunting season. When they spotted me, they took off. Alarm shot through Olivia. Poachers? Did you recognize them? Number? They weren't local, I don't think. They had out-of-state plates on their truck. He ran a hand through his hair, his distress evident. Mom, they were too close to the denning area. What if they're targeting the bears? Olivia was already reaching for her phone. I'll call the sanctuary rangers and the game warden. They'll send patrols. The next few days brought increased security measures throughout the sanctuary. Rangers patrolled the boundaries, game wardens checked vehicles on forest roads, and wildlife cameras were set up near known animal pathways. But no further signs of the poachers were found, leading to hope that they had been scared off by Noah's presence. Then, on a muggy morning, thick with the scent of coming rain, Dr. Reyes called Olivia. Her voice was tight with controlled emotion. We found blood in the northern sector, a lot of it, and drag marks like something large was hauled away. Olivia closed her eyes, a wave of nausea washing over her. A bear? We think so. Game wardens are tracking it now, trying to determine exactly what happened. But it looks like poaching, and it looks professional. These weren't just random hunters. The news hit Noah particularly hard, though there was no way to know yet which bear had been killed. The proximity to the mother bear's territory filled him with dread. For days, he was withdrawn and silent, spending hours at the forest edge, watching and waiting, hoping for a glimpse of the mother bear or her family. A week passed with no sightings. The game warden's investigation continued, but with few leads. Evidence suggested the poachers had been after bear gallbladders and paws, valuable in certain black markets for use in traditional medicines and delicacies. The clinical details of this trade only deepened Noah's anger and grief. As July turned to August, the days growing shorter but still blazing with summer heat, Noah made a decision. He approached Olivia one evening, his expression resolute. I want to delay college, he said without preamble. Just for a year, I need to stay here to help protect the sanctuary, to find out what happened to the bears. Olivia studied her son, seeing the determination in his eyes. This wasn't a whim or an excuse to avoid leaving home. This was a choice rooted in his deepest values, in the connection that had shaped his life since he was a toddler. Are you sure? She asked gently. The university might not hold your scholarship. I'm sure. This matters more right now. I can always go next year. So arrangements were made. Noah deferred his enrollment, explaining his reasons to the university administrators, who were understanding if somewhat bemused by his priorities. He took a part-time position with the sanctuary, assisting with research projects and educational programs while spending his remaining time monitoring the forest, particularly the northern sector where the poaching had occurred. Dr. Reyes welcomed his help, recognizing both his natural aptitude for wildlife observation and his unique connection to the sanctuary's bears. She assigned him to assist with a new research project cataloging the sanctuary's bear population through non-invasive methods. Hair samples collected from rub trees, tracks and scat analysis, and remote camera traps. The work was challenging but fascinating. Noah threw himself into it, learning to recognize individual bears by their tracks, movement patterns, and behavior captured on camera. When they reviewed the first month's footage, a pattern emerged. The mother bear's territory showed no recent signs of activity. It's possible she's moved to a different area, Dr. Reyes said carefully when Noah pointed this out. Bears sometimes shift their ranges in response to disturbance or changes in food availability. But Noah knew better. The mother bear had used that territory, that denning site, for years. It was ancestral ground, passed through generations. She wouldn't abandon it without compelling reason. and the most compelling reason was the one he feared most, that she had been the victim of the poachers. The thought haunted him. At night, he dreamed of her, not the peaceful connection dreams he had experienced before, but nightmares filled with blood and fear and loss. He would wake gasping, sheets tangled around him, the echo of gunshots still ringing in his ears. September brought cooler temperatures and the first hints of autumn color to the forest canopy. Noah continued his work, setting up additional camera traps in areas where bears were preparing for winter, stocking up on food before hibernation. He checked the footage obsessively, hoping for any sign of the mother bear. Then, on a misty morning when spider webs hung jeweled with dew throughout the forest, one of the cameras captured something unexpected. A female bear with 2 cubs crossed a remote game trail, not the mother bear, but her daughter, the one who had been injured years ago. Her distinctive gait was unmistakable, that slight hitch in her step a permanent reminder of her brush with human violence. What struck Noah wasn't just her presence but her direction. She was moving north, away from her established territory, the cubs following closely. And her movement suggested purpose, not random foraging. "She's going somewhere specific," he told Dr. Reyes, reviewing the footage with her. "Look at how direct her path is. Bears meander when they're just feeding or exploring. This is different." Dr. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. "You might be right. But where would she be going? And why now, with winter approaching?" The question nagged at Noah. That night, as he lay in bed listening to autumn wind rustle through the trees outside his window, the answer came to him with startling clarity. Not in words, but in images. A dream so vivid it felt more like memory or vision than random neural firing. He saw a mountain ridge he didn't recognize, jagged and steep. Caves dotted its face, and at its base a small lake gleamed in moonlight. And there, moving with painful slowness up a narrow game trail, was the mother bear. She was injured, a dark stain marring her shoulder, her movements labored but determined. She was heading for the caves, for sanctuary. Noah woke with the first light of dawn, the dream images still sharp in his mind. Without questioning the impulse, he grabbed his backpack, filling it with first aid supplies, water, and food. He scribbled a note for his mother, then slipped out of the house into the misty morning. At the sanctuary headquarters, he accessed the regional topographical maps, searching for a formation that matched what he had seen in his dream. It took nearly an hour, but he found it. Raven's Ridge, a remote area at the northern boundary of the sanctuary, seldom visited due to its rugged terrain and difficult access. Noah hesitated only briefly before making his decision. He should wait for backup, for Dr. Reyes or the Rangers, but something told him there wasn't time to waste. If the mother bear was injured, every hour could be critical. He left a detailed note about his destination, then set off, following the most direct route to Raven's Ridge. The journey was arduous. The trail soon disappeared, forcing him to navigate by compass and map through increasingly difficult terrain. By midday, he was climbing steadily, the forest thinning as elevation increased. His legs ached, and scratches from undergrowth stung his arms, but he pressed on. Late afternoon found him approaching the ridge he had seen in his dream. The resemblance was uncanny. The same jagged profile, the same scattered caves, the same small lake at its base. Noah paused to catch his breath, scanning the landscape for any sign of bears. Movement near one of the lower caves caught his attention. A dark shape shifted against the gray rock, a bear, but not the mother bear. It was her daughter, the one from the camera footage standing guard at the cave entrance. Her cubs were nowhere in sight, likely tucked safely inside the shelter of the rock. Noah approached slowly, making no attempt to hide his presence. The female bear turned toward him, watching his approach with alert wariness but no aggression. Recognition seemed to flicker in her eyes. This human was familiar, not a threat. When he was still a good distance away, Noah stopped and spoke softly. "I'm here to help. Is she in there? Is your mother in there?" The bear made no sound, but her gaze shifted briefly toward the cave entrance before returning to Noah. Then, with deliberate movements, she stepped aside, creating a path to the cave entrance. Noah's heart pounded as he moved forward. The cave opening was low, forcing him to crouch as he entered. Inside, the space widened, natural light filtering in from small fissures in the ceiling. As his eyes adjusted to the dimness, he saw them. The mother bear lying on her side, her breathing shallow, and beside her the female bear's 2 cubs, curled against their grandmother's bulk. The mother bear's eyes opened as Noah approached. There was pain in them, but also a deep, calm recognition. She made no move to rise, to defend herself. Instead, she watched him with what seemed like trust as he knelt beside her. The wound was worse than he had feared. A bullet hole in her shoulder, the flesh around it inflamed and oozing. She had lost blood, was likely fighting infection. Without treatment, she would die. Noah worked methodically, drawing on the wilderness first aid training he had received at the sanctuary. He cleaned the wound, applied antibiotics, and bound it with sterile bandages from his kit. Throughout, the mother bear remained still, occasionally making soft sounds of pain but never threatening him. The daughter bear watched from the cave entrance, her cubs now active and curious, sniffing at this strange human who had come to their sanctuary. Once, when the mother bear groaned in pain, the daughter stepped forward but halted at what seemed like a silent communication between the 2 adult bears. "You knew I would come," Noah said softly as he worked. "Somehow, you knew I would find you." The mother bear's dark eyes held his gaze, reflecting a depth of understanding that transcended human concepts of animal consciousness. She had sought him once, crossing the boundary between their worlds to help a trapped child. Now he had crossed that same boundary, following an inexplicable call to help her in return. By the time Noah finished treating the wound, night was falling. It was too dangerous to attempt the return journey in darkness. He would have to spend the night in the cave, in the company of bears, a situation that would terrify most humans, but that filled Noah with a strange sense of rightness, of completion. He settled against the cave wall, keeping a respectful distance from the injured bear. The female bear and her cubs remained, the cubs eventually falling asleep against their mother's side while she maintained her vigilant watch. Throughout the night, Noah dozed fitfully, waking often to check on the mother bear. By morning, her breathing seemed stronger, more regular. The wound looked cleaner, the inflammation slightly reduced. She would need further treatment, antibiotics to fight the infection fully, but she had a chance now. With the first light, Noah prepared to leave. He needed to bring back help. Doctor. Reyes. Proper medical equipment, perhaps even a wildlife veterinarian if one could be brought to this remote location. He approached the mother bear one last time, checking her bandages, offering her water, which she lapped weakly from his cupped hands. "I'll be back," he promised softly. "Hold on." As he straightened to go, the mother bear made a sound, a gentle chuff, almost like a sigh. With obvious effort, she raised her massive head and nudged Noah's hand with her nose. The gesture was unmistakable, deliberate, a communication that needed no words. "Thank you." Noah's journey back was a blur of determination and urgency. He moved faster now, driven by purpose, ignoring his exhaustion and hunger. By mid-afternoon, he reached the sanctuary headquarters where he found his mother, Doctor, Reyes, and several rangers preparing a search party. "Noah," Olivia rushed to him, her face etched with worry. "We've been frantic. Where have you been?" "I found her," he said simply, his voice rough with emotion. "The mother bear. She's been shot, but she's alive. I treated the wound as best I could, but she needs more help." What followed was a flurry of activity. Dr. Reyes contacted a wildlife veterinarian who specialized in treating large predators. Rangers gathered medical supplies and equipment for transporting an injured bear. By evening, a rescue team was assembled, ready to follow Noah back to Raven's Ridge at first light. That night, as Noah finally slept in his own bed, exhaustion claiming him despite his worry for the mother bear, he dreamed again. But this time, the dream was peaceful, the mother bear strong and healthy, moving through a sunlit forest with her family around her. In the dream, she paused and looked directly at him, her eyes reflecting a wisdom older than human civilization, a connection deeper than words could express. The rescue mission began at dawn. The team moved as quickly as possible, following Noah's lead back to the remote cave. When they arrived, they found the scene much as Noah had left it. The mother bear still alive, still being guarded by her daughter and grand cubs. The wildlife veterinarian worked swiftly, administering antibiotics, cleaning the wound more thoroughly, assessing the bear's overall condition. "She's remarkably strong," he said when he had finished. "The bullet missed vital organs. With treatment, she has a good chance of recovery." The decision was made not to move her yet. The cave provided natural shelter, and the stress of transportation could worsen her condition. Instead, they would treat her in place until she was stronger. A rotation of sanctuary staff would keep watch, continuing the antibiotic treatment and ensuring she had food and water. Days passed, turning into weeks. The mother bear's condition improved steadily. By the time autumn leaves were falling in earnest, painting the forest in russet and gold, she was able to stand, to move slowly around the cave and its immediate surroundings. Noah visited daily, hiking the now familiar route to Raven's Ridge, bringing food and medications. The mother bear seemed to anticipate his visits, watching for his approach, accepting his presence as her natural due. Her daughter and grand cubs remained nearby, creating an unusual extended family group that fascinated the wildlife researchers. As the mother bear's strength returned, Noah worried that she might try to return to her old territory, still potentially vulnerable to poachers. But she seemed content at Raven's Ridge, establishing a new den as winter approached, her daughter and grand cubs integrated into her new domain. The investigation into the poaching incident eventually bore fruit. The bullet removed from the mother bear matched casings found at other poaching sites across 3 states. Federal wildlife agents identified and arrested a ring of black market traders in bear parts, effectively shutting down one significant threat to the sanctuary's bears. Winter settled over the forest, snow blanketing the landscape. The bears entered hibernation, tucked safely away in their remote den. Noah began preparations to finally start college in the spring semester, his deferred enrollment approved by the university. On a crystalline December morning, with the forest silent under its blanket of snow, Noah made one final hike to Raven's Ridge before winter conditions would make the journey too treacherous. The bears would be deep in hibernation now, but he wanted to see their den once more before he left for college. As he approached the ridge, movement caught his eye. Impossible, given the season, yet undeniable. There, standing at the entrance to the den, was the mother bear. She should have been sleeping, conserving energy for the long winter months. Instead, she stood watching as Noah climbed the last stretch toward her. He stopped a respectful distance away, wonder filling him. The mother bear looked fully recovered, her coat thick for winter, her eyes bright and alert. She regarded him steadily, her breath creating clouds of vapor in the cold air. For several long moments they stood in silence, human and bear, connected by an invisible thread of shared experience that defied conventional understanding. Then, with deliberate movements, the mother bear began to descend from her position, moving toward Noah with unhurried purpose. Every instinct should have told him to retreat, to maintain safe distance from a wild predator. But Noah stood his ground, understanding somehow that this moment was important, necessary. The mother bear stopped an arm's length from him. Up close, she was even more magnificent. Her size, her presence, the ancient wisdom in her dark eyes. She raised her head, her gaze holding his, communication flowing between them without need for words or even conscious thought. In that moment, Noah understood that their connection transcended the physical events that had brought them together. It was something deeper, more profound, a recognition of kinship across the artificial boundaries humans had constructed between themselves and the natural world. The bear had recognized a child in distress and had responded with compassion that human understanding would call impossible. Noah had heard a call across those same boundaries and had answered with equal compassion. The mother bear made a soft sound, almost like a contented sigh. Then, with gentle deliberation, she raised one massive paw and held it out. Not in threat, but in what could only be described as greeting. Or, perhaps, goodbye. Noah slowly raised his own hand, not quite touching but mirroring her gesture. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice catching. "For everything." The mother bear held the position for one breath more, then lowered her paw. With a last long look, she turned and made her way back up to her den, soon disappearing inside its shadowed entrance. Noah knew with certainty he would not see her again before he left for college. This had been her farewell. As he hiked back through the winter forest, tears freezing on his cheeks, Noah felt not sadness but a profound sense of completion. The circle that had begun when he was a trapped toddler had closed. The mother bear had saved him, and he had saved her in return. But more than that, she had given him his life's purpose, to be a voice for the voiceless, a defender of the wild places and creatures that existed beyond human understanding, but were no less worthy of protection. Spring came, as it always does, renewing the ancient cycles of the forest. Noah left for college, carrying with him the extraordinary experiences that had shaped him. Olivia continued her work at the sanctuary, which had expanded its educational programs to reach more communities, more children who might grow up with a deeper appreciation for the natural world. The mother bear emerged from hibernation with her extended family, daughter and grandcubs, all healthy and strong. They established a territory that included Raven's Ridge, rarely venturing near human settlements but occasionally visible to sanctuary researchers monitoring the forest's health. Years passed. Noah completed his studies, earning advanced degrees in wildlife biology and conservation policy. His research on bear cognition and behavior, informed by his unique personal experiences, gained international recognition. He returned often to the sanctuary, working alongside his mother and Dr. Reyes to expand its boundaries and protection measures. On a warm summer evening, nearly 20 years after a bear had saved a trapped toddler, Noah stood at the forest edge with his own young daughter. At 5, Maya Bennett had her father's thoughtful eyes and her grandmother Olivia's determined spirit. She held Noah's hand as they watched the sunset paint the forest canopy in gold. "Daddy," Maya asked, her voice hushed with wonder, "are the bears out there watching us right now?" Noah smiled, looking out at the forest that had given him so much. "Maybe," he said softly. "Bears are very smart and very curious. They notice more than we think. Like the bear that saved you when you were little? The one in Grandma's stories?" "Yes, like her." Maya considered this, her small face serious. "Do you think I'll ever see her?" Noah knelt beside his daughter, meeting her eyes. "That particular bear is gone now, sweetheart. Bears live long lives, but not as long as humans. She died peacefully many years ago." It was true. The mother bear had lived an unusually long life for her species, reaching nearly 25 years before passing peacefully in her sleep one winter. Noah had felt her absence like the loss of an old friend, a teacher, a connection to something larger than himself. "But," he continued, "her children are out there, and their children, and their children's children. Her family continues just like ours does. Because you helped save them," Maya said with the simple certainty of a child who had heard the family stories many times. "I helped," Noah acknowledged, "but it wasn't just me. It was your grandmother and doctor, Reyes, and many others who understood something important, that we're all connected, that the boundaries we create between humans and nature, between us and them, are illusions. We're all part of the same world, the same web of life." Maya nodded solemnly, absorbing this wisdom in her own way. Then her expression brightened. "Can we come back tomorrow and watch for bears? Maybe we'll see one of her grandchildren." Noah laughed, lifting his daughter into his arms. "Yes, we can come back. And even if we don't see them, they're there, watching, remembering. Just like we do." As they walked hand in hand back toward home, Noah glanced once more at the darkening forest. For just a moment he thought he saw movement at the tree line, a large, dark shape, watching. But it was gone so quickly he couldn't be certain. Perhaps it had been a bear, perhaps just a shadow. Or perhaps it was the echo of a memory, a reminder of the extraordinary connection that had shaped his life. What remained certain was the lesson that had been written into his heart since childhood, that compassion transcends boundaries, that kinship extends beyond species, and that in saving each other, we save ourselves. The mother bear had taught him that, not with words but with actions, with presence, with the silent wisdom that humans had forgotten but could perhaps, with time and understanding, remember once again. It was this wisdom that Noah now passed to his daughter, and would someday pass to her children. The story of a bear who saved a child, and a child who grew to save bears in return. A story not just of mutual rescue, but of recognition, of seeing the shared spirit that animates all living things and responding to it with open hearts. In the end, that was the mother bear's greatest gift. Not just a child's life saved, but a soul awakened to the profound truth that runs like a hidden river beneath the surface of our world. We are all connected, we all belong, and in that belonging lies our greatest strength, our deepest joy, and our truest purpose. As darkness fell completely, Noah and Maya reached their home, where lights glowed warmly in the windows, and Olivia waited to hear about their forest adventures. Behind them, unseen, the sanctuary forest breathed in the night air, alive with countless stories unfolding in the darkness. Bears moved through ancient pathways, owls called from gnarled branches, deer stepped delicately through moonlit clearings, and somewhere, perhaps, the spirit of a mother bear, who had once crossed the boundary between worlds, continued to watch over them all. A guardian of the forest, a teacher of compassion, a reminder that the most important boundaries are the ones we have the courage to cross.